Export media, container, codec, bitrate. We dive deeper into the issue of export formats. You can export not the entire frame, but you can crop it here. You should open source and crop the output video. Let's say you want a square video. This is a small thing that is useful to know about. So, in what formats to output the video? Basically, I have two typical situations. The first is QuickTime. For example, I need to save a video in maximum quality, not in order to transfer it to someone, because there are professional codecs here. The ProRes and GoPro Cineform codecs may not even play in ordinary players. Such videos don't need to be given to clients. This is most often actual for technical masters that work on TV channels. This may be a technical requirement of the channel for the format for which their equipment works with. Or I save it for myself when I need to pass it on to someone for color correction. I need maximum video quality in situations where the material will go into further work. There is a common situation that helps to save time when rendering. It's absolutely a TV story. Here there is such a function as match sequence settings. And let's say you have the sequence configured with internal QuickTime codec and Apple ProRes 422 high quality. There are codecs that work with this, and there are codecs that don't work with such a system. You click Match Sequence Settings, then click Export. For example, the previews have been calculated in your project. Then, if the container matches the QuickTime preview and the QuickTime export file, if the internal ProRes codec matches the ProRes export, it won't calculate it all over again, but it will simply combine these files into one container. In this case, it will take you not 2 hours to render the program, but 10 minutes, because there will be a simple file copying instead of rendering. And if you need to urgently hand in files in 1 hour, but the rendering takes 2 hours, this will be an absolutely impossible task. There is the best option to render in small pieces during the editing process. Then we just put the render at the end, only in order for it copies the preview files. As a rule, all professional codecs support this. There will be Apple ProRes if you have configured the internal sequence codec. If you have configured the internal export and external export, this will be GoPro Cineform. You need to remember two containers, QuickTime and MXF. They support the workflow, and accordingly, not with all codecs, but only with their own ones. There are ProRes, GoPro Cineform, DVS Pro, MXF OP. They allow you to make a quick workflow and almost instantly drive it out into large programs. If you have an internal H264 sequence codec, you have calculated it, and you have a similar export, you can relax, everything will be recalculated in any way. It's necessary to enable the match sequence settings and use previous checkboxes. So it will copy all these things. Codecs are of this kind. There is each frame that is written separately or long GOP. Between the places where keyframes are recorded, there is a change in these keyframes. This is how H264 works. It is a long GOP codec, although we can make each frame as key in it. Then we'll only have interframe compression. Interframe compression will be removed. The file will get bigger, but I don't know what it is for. These settings are usually sufficient. Let's move on to the issue of rendering for YouTube and other platforms. We output for YouTube in the H264 codec because YouTube will convert it to this format in any way. Don't think that your video will remain the same without conversion. In any case, YouTube will convert it with its own settings. There is no matter what video we put there. Therefore, you can choose H264. So there are many different presets here. But in fact, what presets are really needed here? Previously, there were two presets, match source high bitrate and match source medium bitrate. How do they differ? We take match source medium bitrate and look at the video settings. Here are all the checkboxes that it copied from the sequence parameter. Therefore, it called match source. It takes the settings of frame size, frequency, pixels, etc. from the media source. And what about medium bitrate? It sets such setting as target bitrate 3 and maximum bitrate 6. Match source high bitrate is the same, only there is target bitrate 10 and maximum bitrate 12. Let's say we have a smaller video size, because here is a video with the extension 640 to 360. Why does it need a 10 megabit bitrate? And when you output 4K, 10 megabit won't be enough for you. That is why there are such presets as match source adaptive high bitrate, match source adaptive medium bitrate, and match source adaptive low bitrate. Let's consider match source adaptive medium bitrate. We look at the settings. It's 640 to 360 for video. It considers the target bitrate is 1.1 as the average, and the maximum bitrate is 1.4. If we take another sequence, for example this one, and choose the same match source adaptive medium bitrate, so here we have Full HD, and it offers an optimal value for target bitrate is 9.5 and the maximum is 11.9. It recalculates it depending on the size of the video, its bitrate that is average for it. It also recalculates which is maximum bitrate and which is sufficient one. If we need the maximum value, we will choose adaptive high bitrate. Here you already see such values as target is 15.2 and max is 19. We choose the preset depending on what stage we need. For example, if this is some intermediate, unimportant version, then we will choose adaptive low bitrate. Therefore, the file will be several times smaller compared to adaptive high bitrate, but the visual quality will be normal. What is the difference between the maximum and the minimum? You won't see visually the difference there and there, but the difference will be noticeable after converting to YouTube or after color correction. If you leave the video in the home archive, there will be no difference. Therefore, we feel free to set low bitrate for intermediate versions. We will use high bitrate for final versions when we already upload them to YouTube or give them to someone. Here is such a simple arithmetic. If you want to dive deeper, let's look at what VBR1 pass, VBR2 pass, and CBR are. CBR is a constant bitrate. The bitrate doesn't change during encoding. As you put CBR, we have only one slider left. We can no longer choose the maximum. All videos will be encoded with a bitrate of 9. If I choose VBR1 pass, it will be already called variable bitrate. The bitrate changes depending on what is happening in the image. Target bitrate is the average bitrate. If there are a lot of actions in the image, we don't want to fall on the pixels. It needs to increase the bitrate. It will increase to the maximum, and it will fall below the target value, in the minimum. There is a static frame, a black field, little information. On average, the average bitrate will be 9 in total for the entire video. For example, it will change from 5 to 15, depending on the saturation of a frame. This is the difference of variable bitrate and constant bitrate. Variable bitrate gives more quality, but it has longer encoding. What is 1 pass and 2 pass? This is bitrate that is encoded either in 1 pass or in 2 pass. The quality will be slightly higher in 2 passes than in 1, but the time will be longer in 2 times. But again, you won't see the difference visually. If you want the real maximum, then you should enable this checkbox in 2 passes. Here you can set the same keyframe distance. By default it's disabled, and there is 90. If there are 90 frames at 25 FPS, the keyframe will be every 4 seconds. This can be compared to the moment when you watch a movie. The video abruptly loses its quality and then it immediately returns it after 2 seconds. It was just the keyframe after 2 seconds. Further, all changes to the image are calculated from this keyframe. You can even set each frame as a keyframe. If you use a time tuner in the effects, then here you can set how it will speed up, slow down the video by default. Therefore, you can ignore this checkbox if you don't use the time tuner. That's all, we move on.